and charming doctor, a classic combination of beauty and brains. Totally a South Bombay girl. Convent Jesus Mary, Casey College, Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, and a postgraduate diplomat of National Board from Jaslok. She's really been a performer in every which way. Her affiliations are to the General Medical Council, UK, Indian Medical Association, Maharashtra Medical Council, and she's a member of the Royal College of Physicians of London. She's totally dedicated to the field of rheumatism. And when she mentioned to me, I thought, oh, how can it be of interest? But when I bounced it off a few members in our club, they say, hey, this is the topic we need. And then I realized what she was trying to tell us. She has had 7 years of experience in India in hospitals like Reliance, Safi, Jaslok. Then she went off to UK with her husband. Her husband is a very charming young architect. And 2 years she was in UK with him at the Queen's Medical Centre, Nottingham University Hospital, where she was focused on as a specialist registrar for the Department of Rheumatology and clinical research fellow in connectivity tissue diseases. It's going over my head, but I hope I'll become a little more educated about it today, as all of us will be. And now in the last 3 years, she's back in India to add value. She's affiliated to all the leading hospitals in South Bombay, Jaslok, Saifi, Masina, Prince Ali Khan, St. Elizabeth. As I said, she's a performer everywhere. She's won awards, the Amar Gandhi Award, just to mention one. She's involved in various publications and conferences that she's been attending. And I noticed she joined the meeting in time and our OCV or pre-OCV was a little delayed. So she did hear about what Rotary does firsthand. And when I was looking at her CV, she has done weekly clinical meetings at Saifi. She was a house captain in school, so she has leadership qualities. She has participated in Srinagar flood relief camps that they had, patient first initiative. So these are the kind of things that a Rotarian does. And I would say that today, coming early and hearing is laying the foundation for a future Rotarian in our midst. Today, she's going to speak on this neglected area of rheumatology. She's passionate about this field because she feels that there are so many advances, the newer advances and diagnostics and treatment, which will improve a patient's quality of life. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Anisa Kapadia.
Thank you so much, Anil uncle. I think that was very humbling to hear that. And I've known Anil uncle for so many years of my life because his son Abhay is a very dear friend, not only to my husband, but also to me. I did join early and I'm happy that I did because I must say that the activities that your club has been conducting have blown me away. I did have some idea, but to hear about them firsthand today has thoroughly impressed me. And it's so heartwarming to know that these things are being conducted, that these activities are going on. And I'm not only impressed, but extremely happy to know about all the activities that have been going on. So as Mr. Punjabi and Anil uncle both mentioned that this topic is very close to my heart. I'm truly passionate about this field, and especially so because I feel that the awareness is lacking. The last 3 years that I've practiced rheumatology in India, after coming back from UK, I've realized how much scope there is to create awareness about this field, and patients need to be made aware of their disease and the correct doctor whom they need to consult. So with that, I'll just start my presentation. Would it be possible to allow me to share my screen?
Yes. Manoj, do I have to do that?
Go.
No, you will do that.
Okay, I think I've managed to do that. So I'll just share that. Okay. So it's a short presentation. I haven't made too many slides simply because I do want to keep room for a discussion at the end. So the topic we are here to discuss is who needs to see a rheumatologist. And I think it's extremely relevant in today's times, and I'll talk about that in a bit later. But the very question first arises that who is a rheumatologist, what diseases they treat, and whether a patient, what symptoms they have to develop to first see a rheumatologist. So I'm really thankful to the club for allowing or for giving me the opportunity to talk about this topic. I practice at my clinic, which is at Nana Chowk, and I'm also attached to these hospitals, as Anil Uncle mentioned. This is where my journey in rheumatology started, in Nottingham, which is right in the center of UK. And at this 1,000-bedded hospital, I first learned and discovered the nuances of rheumatology. So I had practiced rheumatology in India prior to going to UK, but the way things are practiced there made me realize what we need to be doing back here. And so then when I came back, I started my own practice. I do go to the hospitals, but I devote a lot of time at my clinic, which is called the Specialty Clinic at Nana Chowk. So before we talk about the current day scenario, let's talk about the historical perspective. Many doctors also believe that rheumatology is a very new field of medicine. And I beg to differ, because if we look back, Hippocrates mentioned rheuma or diseases which are caused by flowing of fluids in the joints in his corpus. Even Charak, the ancient Ayurvedic physician, mentions it in his book, the Charaka Samhita, and he calls it Vishkantha. So these diseases have been around since ancient years. It's only that physicians have started knowing how to treat them, I would say, in the last 60 or 70 years. Even medieval paintings by Botticelli and many others show the symptoms or the signs of arthritis in a young youth. So this again makes us wonder. It's always been thought that arthritis belongs to the elderly, but even younger people develop arthritis, and this was known as early on as 1482. So firstly, let's discuss some common terminology. When I had the discussion with Anil Uncle early on, he rightly pointed out to me that many of these terminologies are not very clear in how a patient should describe their symptoms. So rheumatism is a common term and a lot of us use it. However, it does not signify a diagnosis or disease. It basically includes broadly a group of conditions that cause joint pains. And I'll talk about these individual conditions as we move on in this talk. So the origin is from the Latin word rheumatismus, or to suffer from a flux. And in the earlier centuries, physicians believed that joint pains or arthritis was caused by flow of rheum or bodily fluids into the joint. However, we much later discovered that this was not the case. Arthritis, or in many other languages, which is known as Vat, Sandhivat, or Gujarati, it's known as Va, is basically a disease that causes painful inflammation along with swelling and stiffness of the joint. The Greeks meant arthro to be a joint, and itis in any medical lingo means inflammation. So, for example, when we talk about conjunctivitis, it's inflammation of your conjunctiva or the lining of your eye. It is a major cause for physical disability, and I want to emphasize this. Although it seems it affects only 1% of the population, you have to understand that 1% of India's population is more than 1 million people. So currently, as we speak, more than 1 million people are living with this condition. Globally, when the global health authorities define how much impact any particular disease has to the global disease burden, they talk about years lived with disability. That means a particular disease, how much impact does it have on a patient's life? This is the terminology we talk about. And arthritis affects 19.2% of this chunk. This is a huge proportion. It is in fact more common than diabetes, cancer, or even AIDS. And yet, so many people are not aware about this condition. So this is a small graph which I have taken from the CDC, or the Center of Disease Control website. This is, of course, US data, but we can see and we can extrapolate it to India as well. This tells us how, as the years advance, so as we move towards 2035, 2040, the number of people who live with arthritis is increasing quite exponentially. And by 2040, 78 million people will be affected by arthritis. This is a very big number. And it's about time that not only doctors, but even government authorities take this into consideration when health policies are made nationally. So this is a small, again, a small graph which tells us that although at present India's pyramid, the age pyramid is inverted, the projection is, and this projection is by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, as the years advance, the age pyramid may become inverted, much like what Japan is today. So this means that the number of people, even in India, who will live with arthritis will increase as the years go by. So what I'm going to do is talk about some common or frequently asked questions about arthritis. This is, of course, not, these are very, very broadly and very superficial questions, and there's a lot to talk about, but I'll try and address at least some of the commoner ones. A common misconception is that arthritis affects only the elderly, as I myself pointed out in the earlier slides. However, it can affect anyone. So even children as young as 2 or 3 years old, adults who are in their prime of their life, as well as the elderly, can be affected by arthritis. This is again important to know because many younger patients ignore their symptoms, thinking that this is not something that could affect me at this age. And they keep either popping over-the-counter painkillers or going to their general practitioner for quick relief. And as a result, precious time is lost. So this is, again, another point that I wish to drive home, that it can affect almost any age group. So what are the early symptoms that one should look out for? I would think that this is probably one of the most important slides. And speaking very simply, any pain in your joint that affects your quality of life is important and should not be ignored. What I mean is chores which you do daily, for example, lifting a heavy mug, or if you're someone who needs your own atta, your own dough, and that's something you can't do, or simply typing on a keyboard or writing a letter, or your signature has got affected. These are all things that make you think, should make one think that your hand joints have been affected with, possibly with arthritis. The inflammatory arthritis, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, is generally worse after rest and worse in the mornings, in the early morning hours when we get up. You may feel a lot of stiffness, not only in your joints, but maybe in your entire body. This stiffness, if it lasts for more than half an hour to 45 minutes, is significant. Arthritis affects not only your joints, it can actually affect your entire body. So you may experience loss of weight, fatigue, which you can't account for. And if this is not detected early, eventually arthritis can cause joint deformities, where your joints might become twisted and deformed. So a lot of my patients, or rather children of patients, often ask me, are these conditions genetic or hereditary? And although yes, some conditions are, such as psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, but these are not always so. And it should not make one worry or anxious if their family members have these conditions. What we should do is be vigilant. There is no way to predict if someone, a family member of someone who has arthritis, will develop it. But if you do experience the symptoms that I described in the earlier slide, we should seek attention. So there are more than 100 types of arthritis, but what I will do is talk about broadly about the commoner ones. So these are some of the common ones: osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, which most people are aware of, psoriatic arthritis, and the juvenile arthritis, which occurs in children, which I'll leave out for the scope of this topic. So the most common form, which affects many, many people, in fact, it affects millions worldwide, is the osteoarthritis. And this can occur in almost any joint, but knees are something that are most commonly diagnosed. So you may know a lot of people who have knee pain and are often referred for, say, knee replacement surgeries. Most of the time, it is osteoarthritis, but it is important to diagnose this correctly. So basically, what happens in osteoarthritis, the cartilage or the cushion between the joint may get worn out with age or with wear and tear, as the British often call it. And over time, as you can see in the knee joint figure, your cartilage, once it's worn out, causes the bones to rub against each other. And this is what causes a lot of pain. So this is something which is, you can say, maybe a part of aging, although it often occurs in very young people, even at the age of 40. Once this occurs, it is very difficult to reverse this process. It does occur more commonly in women, but men are affected as well. And we have not yet discovered a medication that can reverse it or that can prevent this from happening. The things that are generally prescribed are things like glucosamine, chondroitin sulfate, and these are have been said to help with this process, although evidence has not yet helped that these medications actually help. What really helps is exercise, because if you exercise, the chances are that the muscles around your joints will become healthier, stronger, and will thus prevent your joint from getting worn out easily. Maintaining, of course, a healthy weight and a balanced lifestyle with diet as well as exercise will go a long way on preventing these deformities. So not only it affects the knees, but as I have shown in this diagram, in this picture, it can affect your hand joints. A lot of patients come to me with solely this symptom, that their fingers have become knobbly and look very, very deformed. Fortunately, this is not one of the more severe progressive arthritis. And what I tell them is, don't worry. I give them reassurance. And I tell them that as long as you exercise, not only, of course, your knees, but your entire body, you should be all right. But most important, and this is where I would like to emphasize again, is to distinguish this degenerative or age-related arthritis from the more severe rheumatoid arthritis. And this is what I meant where awareness is lacking. Often, very often, I see patients who have been told this is just wear and tear or age-related arthritis, you need a knee replacement surgery, or they even come to me after they've had knee replacement surgeries for me only to tell them that this was all along rheumatoid arthritis. So rheumatoid arthritis is basically where you get a lot of inflammation or swelling in your joints. It is autoimmune in nature. So for no reason at all, your own immune system attacks the lining of your joints or the synovium. This again can occur in any joint, not only your knees, but your hands. You may have seen patients who develop these hand deformities. This means that the rheumatoid has been very long-standing and may have not been treated adequately. The causes for this are definitely not known, but theories are postulated. It could be an environmental, hereditary. Smoking is known to be a causative factor. And again, this occurs more in women. And I often joke as if we women didn't have enough problems, that God has given us all these various diseases as well. But it occurs in men as well. And often men are again underdiagnosed, because even doctors tend to think that this occurs only in women. When untreated, it can lead to deformities. So in today's day and age, if someone develops these deformities, for me, it is unacceptable, because we have a score of medications that work and they are all available in India. I must say that as Indians, we do crib about a lot of things, we complain. But as far as medications are concerned, we do have very, very good generic options, which are much cheaper. than those available worldwide. And so this again should not be ignored. So in the photograph on the lower right hand of my screen, you can see this is more earlier stage of rheumatoid arthritis. If someone is treated at this stage, we can prevent the deformities in the picture above. So what is gout? Gout is the arthritis that is linked with high blood uric acid levels. And the most common joint that is affected is the big toe. So it starts with there, but it can affect again your knees or your wrists or your ankles, almost any joint. And what you need is generally anti-inflammatory medications. Your doctor might advise that you take bed rest. And if it occurs again and again, you might need medications to lower your uric acid. This is one arthritis where diet plays a very important role. Almost all my patients ask me about diet, and I'll talk about it a little later. But in gout, yes, diet and lifestyle plays a very, very important role, because if you control your diet and reduce purine containing foods such as red meat, shellfish, and alcohol, especially alcoholic beverages such as lagers or beers, it can reduce the frequency of these episodes. They're generally episodic, so they come with very severe debilitating pain. You may be bedridden, but in a span of a few days or a few weeks, you might be completely all right once the attack subsides. This should not be confused with widespread joint pains or joint pains that affect multiple parts of your body and which are more chronic or long-standing. Again, I see a lot of patients who have been wrongly diagnosed with uric acid related problems, when in fact they have rheumatoid or some other arthritis. So the number of arthritis or the list that we rheumatologists treat is a very, very long one. And if I had to talk about them, I think all of us would be here almost all day. I'll just mention some of them. And one of them is fibromyalgia, which used to be again seen more widespread in Western countries, but I see it increasingly here. This is widespread pain, not so much in your joints, but in your muscles. Psoriatic arthritis is arthritis which can mimic rheumatoid arthritis, but here someone, either in the family or the patient themselves, may have psoriasis. Ankylosing spondylitis is a very important condition which affects men also more commonly, but again can affect women, and they get back pain before the age of 40. So the number of patients who I have seen who've been told that you have a disc problem in their 30s or even in their 20s, when they actually have ankylosing spondylitis, is numerable. So this is one condition which is missed not only by general practitioners, but even by specialists. And that is again a condition that can be easily treated and managed. Some of the more severe or more serious conditions, as Anil Uncle mentioned, this is what I basically specialized in, connective tissue disorders. These are very severe. They occur maybe 1 in a lakh people, but they can affect almost any organ of our body. So this is what rheumatologists treat with. And I'm sure you now have a much better idea about what rheumatology is all about. So the question, of course, and this is, again, I know there might be some repetition, but what I want to emphasize is that when should one see a rheumatologist? If you have pain and stiffness in your joint, which is affecting the quality of your life, which prevents you from doing things which you did normally. For example, as I mentioned earlier, lifting a heavy cup, say writing, typing on a keyboard, kneading dough. If you experience a lot of weight loss, fatigue, lethargy, if your joints are getting deformed, it is important to get a correct diagnosis and not to be treated just superlatively with painkillers or steroids. And this is what happens very often. So most of my patients, after I tell them that yes, you do have one of these many arthritis, they often ask me, is there a cure for it? So although there is no cure for arthritis, there is excellent medications which we can control it with. For example, just like we control our diabetes or our blood pressure, and just like that, we do need to take medications long term. But if we persevere and we take them correctly, we exercise, most often these medications can be reduced and even stopped once we get better. Another question that comes up is that are medications dangerous? So that has been a concept in the past where we didn't have that many options. At that time, most doctors prescribed either painkillers or steroids, which have been very harmful. So yes, traditionally, arthritis medications such as steroids have caused a lot of harm. But the newer generation of rheumatologists, such as myself, have realized that with the new options available out there, we don't need to use painkillers or steroids. And with counseling, with supervision, most of our medications are quite safe. Some of them, we call them as game changers, where they completely change a patient's life. And as I showed you earlier, the deformities that have occurred traditionally with rheumatoid arthritis should not happen anymore. And a patient should not have to suffer from those problems. Most important question, and I always discuss this with my patients, is that either what can we do to prevent getting arthritis, or if we do have arthritis, how can we manage it better? So holistically, it is important to look at not only medications, but also other lifestyle measures, such as regular exercises, diet, which contains a balance of everything. A lot of people have this concept that we shouldn't eat things like khatta or sour foods. That there is no scientific basis to support this argument. And I encourage patients to eat everything as far as their other conditions allow, for example, their diabetes or their blood pressure, as long as they maintain a normal body weight and exercise regularly. Some of these things were also discussed in an article in Mumbai Samachar, which came on 12th September. If anyone reads Gujarati, I would be happy to share it with them. Again, another misnomer, which I touched upon earlier, is that raised uric acid causes joint pain. This is unfortunately very widespread, not only amongst the lay people, but also amongst doctors. And the number of prescriptions I have seen, and I have counseled patients to stop taking uric acid medications, is just a very large number. So all uric acid does not have to be treated. And vague, non-specific joint pain, other than what I had described in the slide about gout, should not be treated with uric acid lowering medicines. So I'm sure either you know someone who is on these medicines, or you know someone, or maybe it has been prescribed to you. You must question your doctor whether this is really required. Because except for arthritis, which resembles gout, uric acid lowering medicines should not be prescribed for just a standard joint pain or just a standard raised uric acid. Again, I feel strongly about this. So I had mentioned this in an article which came just last week in the midday on 26th of March, and I've talked about it quite a bit in detail. I would be happy to share this with anyone if they wish. So this is pretty much my last slide. And I want to talk about what the way forward is. Of course, I mentioned what the problems are, but I must say that there is a lot of hope. There's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. And the way we need to achieve these results is by early diagnosis. So in rheumatology, especially for rheumatoid arthritis, the mantra that we rheumatologists talk about is treat to target. So it's not enough that a patient's pain has reduced. The patient's pain should completely go away. That is what we hope to achieve by medications, and it is possible today. A patient can lead a pain-free life, can go about their normal lives completely, and be extremely productive. So a lot of my younger patients are worried that once they're diagnosed with arthritis, they'll have to restrict their lives. And I tell them that that is not the case. You can do everything that a normal person can. The most important thing is to get the correct diagnosis. So then and only then will the medications work. It's also important to prevent unnecessary surgeries. So as I mentioned earlier, the number of patients who had unnecessary knee replacement surgeries is also very large. So for these patients who are advised knee replacement surgeries, the question to ask is, do you have joint pains in your other joints? Are they swollen? Are they inflamed? If yes, then medications for rheumatoid arthritis is what is needed and not a knee replacement surgery. Most important is a holistic patient-centric approach and not a one-size-fits-all. I truly believe in this, and I always go into the very details of what a patient's life is all about, what work they do, how active they are, what are their other health problems before I prescribe any medication. Again, don't neglect your symptoms. If you have any of these problems, please consult your physician or consult a rheumatologist so that you get diagnosed early. It's also important to create awareness about this, and that's one of the reasons I really wanted to do this talk and hope to do more such talks in the future so that the patients know when and who they should see to get the correct treatment at the correct time. So some of my informative videos are also available on YouTube, and I talk about each individual condition in a small 10-minute, 7 to 10-minute video. If anyone would like to see them, I'm happy to take questions. And these are the places where on via email, website, or WhatsApp, I'm happy to answer any more questions which come to anyone's mind later. I think with that, I can end my talk. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Doctor. We really enjoyed your talk, and I'm sure members have lots of questions. But if they don't, I have about 5 questions written down already.
That's great. It's always a good sign if there are questions.
Any members have any questions to ask? Just a minute, let me see if I can view. Yes. Any questions, members? Let me
ask a question. Thank you, Doctor, for that very comprehensive and easy to understand presentation. What is something I hear about and is viral arthritis? Is that something that's fairly new, or is that you throw a little bit more light on what that could mean?
Sure. So what happened, I think, especially in India in about in 2006, there was an epidemic of chikungunya. And subsequent to that, a lot of people developed arthritis. Now, normally speaking, viral arthritis, chikungunya is basically a virus, and any viral infection can, yes, precipitate an arthritis. If this arthritis, because of the viral infection, it shouldn't last for more than 3 months. Anything lasting longer than 3 months means it is not purely viral arthritis and is in fact either a rheumatoid arthritis or some other form of arthritis which has got precipitated by the virus. So all our arthritic conditions, they just need a trigger. It can be a fever, it can be any other health problem or even mental stress, which can precipitate your condition. So this is again, where, as I said earlier, the diagnosis which one makes at the beginning is very important. And if someone gets labeled a viral arthritis, they will just completely, we'll miss the time frame in which the medications could have worked.
Thank you.
Doctor, if I may ask you a question for myself,
Yeah.
In the beginning of this year, I used to with a little pain in my hands, like stiffness in my hands, and then I used to become okay in about 15-20 minutes, but that was happening every day.
Okay.
Then, of course, during the COVID times, we used to exercise at home, all of us, using on Cult TV.
Right.
All programs,
Yes.
Heavy duty also. Then I developed, because of that, I developed a little shoulder pain. I'm thinking because of the Cult, or maybe it's because of arthritis. I have no idea now. Now I'm confused.
Right.
Anything could be arthritis. So then my fingers are now fine. And so what do you think the reason it could be arthritis or what?
So anything that causes joint pain, yes, it could be one of the many arthritic conditions that I mentioned. But whether it needs medical attention or not is purely dependent on how much it affects your quality of life. So if it's something that you can manage, without any medications, without painkillers, I think you can attribute it to some extent to what I mentioned as wear and tear that occurs in all of us. I mean, after 40 or after 50, it can occur in any joint. So all it needs is then basically exercises. But if it's very severe, you do need to see a doctor, get examined, and find out exactly what is causing these symptoms.
Would need investigation if it escalates. That's what
So
you're
I
saying.
would say a physical examination is more important, because a physical examination will tell us whether you need investigation or not. A lot of doctors prescribe undue MRIs and ultrasounds, and that's something that I don't promote personally, because I think unless, like I said, unless it's something that can't be diagnosed physically, you don't need these fancy tests.
Okay, one more question I have is people say methi seeds helps to get rid of arthritis.
So that's one of the natural therapies that has been around for a long time. And in our alternative medicines, such as Ayurveda, a lot of connection has been given to food and joint pains. As far as scientific evidence is concerned, there is nothing to connect the two. I have done an extensive research on this topic simply to answer my patients better, because almost every patient asks me this question. But there is no scientific evidence. But that said, there is no harm in it either. And I would say that if it helps you, please carry on. But don't do that by neglecting other things. So, for example, if someone takes methi seeds but takes all sorts of unhealthy foods on the other hand, that is not a good idea. So that should be done along with the other measures.
Okay, Ashok Sharma has a question, I think.
Yes, Ashok, please tell me. Ashok, do you have a question?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
yes, my question is, what is the difference between a rheumatologist, orthopedic, and neurologist? All three handle, something to do with the bones and all. Yeah.
I'm actually very happy that someone asked me this question. I think it's a very, very good question, and I will discuss it. So, orthopedic surgeons are doctors who deal with what I would say are the structural problems in a joint. So once an arthritis has affected your joint to the extent that either it has caused a deformity, it has worn out the cartilage, and maybe no medications will work, then you're left with the only option of surgery, then that is where the expertise comes in. Also, on the other hand, there are a lot of non-arthritic conditions. So, for example, a ligament tear, a meniscal tear. This is again where orthopedic surgeons are known to come in, where they either conduct small keyhole surgeries to repair this. A rheumatologist, on the other hand, is a non-surgical field, or rheumatology is a non-surgical field, where we diagnose your condition, whether it is one of these many types of arthritis, and what medications will work. The medications is where our expertise lies, and a rheumatologist is someone who treats these conditions with medications. A neurologist, on the other hand, has actually, to be honest, more or less no role to play in arthritic conditions. We do consult them if our arthritic conditions has affected the nerves or the brain. In that case, a neurologist comes into the picture. I hope that makes sense. But if it doesn't, I'm happy to elaborate further.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would like to come and see you, but I couldn't take down your numbers.
Okay.
So I'll have to ask the president or the office to give them to me. I want to come and see you.
Sure, Mr. Kamlani, anytime. I'll pass on my details to Mr. Panjabi, and of course, Anil Uncle has them. So maybe, and I'm happy to even share this presentation if that helps with the members. So that has all my details as well.
And what time are you there in your clinic?
I'm there Monday to Friday from 11 to 6 daily.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Hi.
Please go ahead.
You know, there is, Anisa, there is a practice of, you know, they say that you knead dough.
Yeah.
It helps these.
Yes.
Is
yes.
that some science to it, or is there any merit in that? Or?
I think there's a lot of merit in that. In fact, I tell a lot of my patients to do that, men and women both, that instead of going for all these fancy physiotherapy sessions and going for all these fancy gadgets that you get on Amazon and everywhere, kneading dough is actually a very good form of exercise because it exercises your hand joints. So all your small joints, which are affected not only in rheumatoid, but also in osteoarthritis, they get exercised by kneading dough. And the harder the dough, so for example, puri ka atta or bajri or jawari ka atta, it's even better exercise. Okay. So yeah, I think it does make a lot of sense to do that.
Okay, arising out of Dr. Anil Ashok Sharma's question,
right?
If you have a pain in the knee, do you first go to the orthopedic or do you first go to the rheumatologist?
I think if it's a small nickel and if you know a friendly orthopedic surgeon who's not going to advise unnecessary tests or procedures, then yeah, orthopedic or a rheumatologist, either way should be fine. But in Western countries, you would go to a rheumatologist. Let me put it this way. It's just that in India, rheumatologists are very few and far between, and most people don't have access or they don't know about it, and therefore end up going to an orthopedic. So to be fair to them, for years, orthopedic surgeons have treated rheumatology conditions simply because there weren't enough rheumatologists around. And, many have done a good job of it also. But it is where when a patient is advised unnecessary tests or unnecessary surgeries or procedures, that is where you must raise your antenna and you must look for a rheumatologist to verify the diagnosis. So I think that is a more sort of sensible approach.
Vicky, can I ask a question?
Yes, Tilak, please go ahead.
Ma'am, I have been diagnosed with a tear of the exterior fiber in my shoulder, very painful. Oh. I'm not able to move my hand so easily.
Right.
An orthopedic or which is the doctor I need to see for this?
So if it's solely, Mr. Mehta, if it's solely in your that one particular joint, and you have if you have nothing other than that, so you have no other joint pains, for example, the rest of your joints are all completely fine, then it's more likely to be what we call as rotator cuff or a frozen shoulder. Right, and an orthopedic surgeon would be the correct person to consult. There are shoulder surgeons as well who specialize only in shoulder injuries, and they can guide you. So what is recommended then, the various forms of treatment that are recommended are either physiotherapy. Some doctors do prescribe injections into the shoulder, which don't always work, but may give you temporary pain relief. And only if your shoulder injury fits into certain criteria, then it should be considered for a repair or for a surgery. So a good orthopedic or a good shoulder surgeon should be able to guide you depending on your particular type of injury.
Okay, thank you. And this injection which they give, which I'm told is, does it have any side effects or anything?
Right.
So if it's a steroid injection that has been advised, which is commonly advised, if it is given repeatedly, it can cause damage. So if it's given one time, shouldn't cause any problems if it's administered correctly. But if they give it repeatedly, if you keep needing to take it every few months, then it will cause damage where actually the injury might become worse and it may not heal naturally.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, doctor.
Sure, no problem.
I have a
Doctor?
question.
Yes. Who is this?
Gargi.
Hi, Gargi. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Anisha. Thank you so
Hi,
much
Gargi.
for a wonderful presentation.
You're most welcome.
I have a family history of osteoarthritis, and I'm in my 30s. So what can I do to prevent it? You know, apart from doing regular exercises and all, any supplements that needs to be taken or anything like that?
I think that's a very good question, and that is relevant to a lot of people. Osteoarthritis can run in families. So, but most of our parents have it. My mom has very severe osteoarthritis. And what I tell myself is that there's no supplement or there's no medication that we can use to prevent it. Just like we've not yet found a cure or a way to reverse or to prevent aging. It is going to happen. So, however, if we do control our weight, for example, if we control our any other medical condition. So if I had a chance of, say, developing diabetes or blood pressure, and I control those things, then the chances are that the osteoarthritis affecting my life will be very less. So what I'm saying is that you will, in all probability, you might develop it, but it won't impact your life as long as these other things are taken care of. And these things like glucosamine and chondroitin have no role. So please stay away from them. As long as women don't reach menopause, they don't need to take calcium supplements. Calcium supplements are prescribed left, right, and center. But in women, it should only be after menopause, and in men should not take calcium at all. That is something, again, which is misused a lot.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Sorry, another question, ma'am. You mentioned that for osteoporosis, men should not take calcium, but this is being prescribed by the doctors to us.
So that is provided you have osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is again a very specific condition. I did not mention it, and I thank you for pointing that out. I actually have not mentioned it in my presentation. Osteoporosis is completely different from osteoarthritis. Osteoporosis is basically where your bones have become brittle and your bones have lacked calcium. Although it can occur in men, it is very rare. It most often again occurs in women. And when it occurs in men, it should only be diagnosed under very strict criteria, including things like a thorough history, a family history, and of course a DEXA scan or a bone scan that shows a certain degree of osteoporosis. The other problem is that our bone scans, which we do, I mean, a lot of people have done them as part of their normal health package, and it might show a mildly low figure, which then ends up being diagnosed as osteoporosis. It's actually wrong because the bone scan has been calibrated to Western population of Caucasians, which, as we all know, are much sturdier than the Indian population. And what is normal in that bone scan is not normal for Indians. So, like I said, that even those reports have to be taken in only in connection to what your physical and your history is like. So, if you do have osteoporosis, yes, you do need to take calcium and vitamin D, but provided that you do have osteoporosis.
Does the calcium have any side effects then, having calcium regularly?
In men, yes, it can have side effects because if you take excess calcium, other than what you need, it can get deposited in your arteries. So that is something that is not very good. In women, you need calcium because in women, as long as we have not reached menopause, our hormones such as estrogen, they actually protect our bones. As soon as menopause is reached, those useful hormones, the estrogen and the progesterone, are suddenly, the levels go down. And because of that, you need an extra supplementary calcium to prevent fractures. So that is why you need calcium in women and you don't need it in men as a routine.
Thank you.
Very useful information. Doctor, there's a question from one of the people in the audience on the chat. Hi, doctor, very useful session. Should someone with RA take the COVID vaccine?
COVID vaccine, yes. That's a very, very good question. I'm very
What is RA
grateful.
stand for?
RA is rheumatoid arthritis.
Right.
I can't see the name of the person who asked it, but thank you for asking that. Yes, rheumatoid arthritis or any rheumatic condition, patients with any of these conditions should definitely take the vaccine. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And this has been again corroborated by the American College of Rheumatology, which has released guidelines. The European Society, the British Society, all of them have specified that patients with rheumatoid arthritis or any arthritis should take the COVID vaccine. However, you need to consult your doctor depending on the medication you're taking, because on certain medications, you might need to hold the medication for a while for the vaccine to work. It won't have any interaction with the vaccine. It's just that some of our medications, they inactivate the vaccine. So we do need to take it, but please consult your doctor and verify whether you need to stop your medication for a short time.
Vicky, can I ask a question?
Yes, Jamshid, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, doctor.
Hi.
For some joint conditions, this diathermy or these other types of treatments are prescribed. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Does that fit into having some type of arthritis?
So these are very diathermy, and some of these heat applications and even ultrasound applications are used by physiotherapists. They often prescribed by orthopedic surgeons also. And I would say they are symptomatic treatments. So they are just temporary measures to relieve your pain and inflammation. It will do nothing to your underlying arthritic condition. It will not treat it or cure it. It will only symptomatically or temporarily reduce your pain. So there's no harm in taking them, but that's not the sole thing that one should rely on. And one should first find out what is the condition or what is the diagnosis that is causing these symptoms, and accordingly take the treatment for that.
But that does not necessarily mean that this person has got arthritis.
No, sometimes even you might have what we call mechanical injuries, so as Mr. Mehta earlier was talking about his shoulder problem, which is partly wear and tear and partly mechanical, where we injure some of our ligaments or our soft tissues in our body. And for these conditions, these things like diathermy or ultrasound application works. So it basically improves your mobility. So if it reduces your pain, it improves your mobility, it allows you to exercise better. Ultimately, your objective is to exercise. So it will help towards that.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Okay, with that question, who is this?
Ashwin.
Ashwin, please go ahead. That will be the last question of the day. Go ahead, Ashwin.
Yeah, doctor, I just wanted to ask you, I've been taking this medicine called Rejoin for many years. I just wanted to know does it have any side effect or any danger in continuing?
So Rejoin, I think, contains a lot of these supplements like glucosamine, chondroitin, probably vitamin D, and there's no harm in taking it. It won't cause you any adverse effects or any side effects, but there's not much use in taking it either. So there's not much use either. So I would say that it's not required. And most of my patients who do take these medications, I tell them to finish the quota they have and not buy anymore. But of course, as to answer your question, it doesn't have any harm. There's no side effects.
No, I find that I used to affect my knees used to be affected.
Right.
And by taking this medicine, I was able to walk much more.
That's absolutely great. So you can continue it. It shouldn't have too much calcium. But other than the other things such as glucosamine, chondroitin, or even vitamin D, there's no harm in it. You can definitely continue taking.
Yeah. Thank you, doctor.
No problem.
Okay, with this, I will take the meeting to a close, and I can see many more hands, but I will ask them to take your appointment, and or they will have to wait for you to come again.
Sure. I'm happy to share my contact details, such as my email address and things also. So if someone is not able to make it to the clinic and wish to send me an email, I'm happy to answer any queries that arise out of this topic.
Anil, why don't you share it with me and I will post it on the chat.
And
yeah, please, Vicky, we want her.
He's also a prospective Rotarian, if I may say so.
Oh, we would love that,
Definitely, Anil uncle. I'll definitely talk to you more about this. And as I said earlier, I'm extremely impressed by the activities that you all have been conducting. So I'll definitely talk to you about that when we meet.
Yeah, thank you, Anish. Thank you. And I will ask our member, Vinod Mirchandani, to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you, President Vicky. I think you have this ingrained in your script that I do the vote of thanks at every meeting, but nonetheless, thank you very much for the opportunity. Fellow Rotarians, Rotarians, guests, our distinguished speaker, Dr. Anisa Kapadia. Thank you very much for firstly being patient and listening to parts of our OCV at the start of the presentation. But your presentation this afternoon has really made us feel so comfortable that I think the proof is in the pudding. You not only have wonderful questions, but you have a line of people wanting to come and see you.
Yeah.
So your presentation talking about arthritis, gout, and of course the Ghar Ka remedies, whether it's the methi seeds or the ointment that the old Maharaj makes for you. I think you've covered all of that with your modern education from overseas and your true Indian experience at some of the top hospitals in Mumbai. I personally felt while you were Anil Ambo's relative, it was a Ghar Ka doctor that I felt I was listening to and talking to. So I hope you don't mind in us at Rotary Club of Bombay Midtown welcoming you to the Rotary family, but also sharing so warmly and through your heart this topic which requires a lot of science and correct advice. On a lighter note, and as Anil said that you're young and will be able to spot this joke, I quickly read this from the internet and it's best explained graphically, but two doctors were talking and they said the patients know more about the diseases than me. So the other doctor says, I think I must get faster modem, higher internet speed than my clients. And I think that's a topic that you've covered.
It's so true.
I think you know a lot.
True.
We have definitely a lot to gain from an expert like you. So once again, thank you very much on behalf of all our members. We look forward to welcoming you back to our club and engaging with you on future occasions. While
Thank
I have
you so much.
I think I can't stop talking. We have our next week's meeting, which is 7th of April, Mr. Ranveer Gill, and we will be posting more information on that. And last but not the least, our club official club visit, the Grand Bank finale to what was a prelude today, is on April 14th. So we encourage not only board members, but also all other members to join us at the official club visit. With that, I thank you very much and don't keep you away between you and your lunch. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.